Hey, what's going on, guys? The Beldam is back for a brand new video. Happy Friday the 13th, everyone. And initially, in celebration of Jason's big day, I wasn't planning on making a video, but I got a little bit of inspiration when I just finished watching my brother Boogeyman Ben do his Friday the 13th yearly video, because Jason is getting two birthdays this year. But instead of just doing a ranking video, although I may do one down the line, but if you're really curious to see my ranking, check my letterbox. It's on there. It's under Camp Blood. But for this video, I wanted to discuss the film that actually was the introduction to me to the character of Jason Voorhees. Now, this is kind of an odd one, because there was technically two films that were my introduction to the character. There was Jason X and Freddy vs. Jason. And the reason those two were my introductions is because those were the only VHS copies of the movies my grandmother owned at the time that shed any of the Friday the 13th movies. So I didn't watch any of the previous ones until I was a little bit older. But I wanted to talk about the one that really kind of made me look at Jason as the character. Even though the actor Kane Hodder isn't playing him in this movie, but I'm going to talk about Freddy vs. Jason. Now, unbeknownst to me, I wasn't really aware of kind of the hype surrounding this film, because I didn't know who the character of Jason was until I saw this movie. But I know now that this movie has been hyped up and it's been in production hell since Jason Goes to Hell. It's kind of fitting, actually. That's kind of fitting, actually. I'm just kidding. But 2003 comes, and this comes out, and I wasn't able to see it in theaters, unfortunately. I think the first time I did watch it was with my friend and I. We bought it on VHS, and of course from a thrift store. But of course, the VHS didn't work because the movie kept stopping in in the middle of the film. But backtracking before this, I saw A Nightmare on Elm Street first. Nightmare on Elm Street was one of the very earliest horror films I did watch, the first R-rated horror films I did watch as a kid. I remember watching the first three, at least, at my friend's house when I was a kid. And I don't remember if it really scared me, but I was just so fascinated by the character of Freddy Krueger. And I think by that point, before the 2000s hit, excuse me, I was a bona fide Fredhead. I loved almost all of the movies. But I didn't know anything about the character of Jason until this movie. So when I was watching this movie, and obviously Freddy is a character I was well known. In the opening of this movie, they give Freddy, they show Freddy's history, because as we all know, at this time, it was only New Line Cinema owned the character of Jason. They didn't own like Friday the 13th, so they couldn't show any of the clips from the Paramount pictures. But we all know from this film that Freddy is dead, and his soul's in hell, and he's finding a way to come back to haunt and kill the teenagers of Elm Street. But he can't do it on his own because he doesn't have the abilities anymore, because he's weak. So he searches in hell, and he finds Jason Voorhees to brings him back to go to Springwood and kill teenagers and have people thinking it's Freddy who's doing this. But Jason, he isn't willing to stand down when Freddy needs him to, so this film is ultimately like they get into this huge battle. Well, huge battle for a 2003 horror crossover. But when I was watching it, like I was like asking myself, who is this big hulking guy with this hockey mask? I didn't know anything about him. And when the character of Stubbs, played by Lachlan Monroe, who I did see from Scary Movie, he explained a little bit of Jason's backstory, and I was like, huh, how did I never hear about this guy before? It was the story of this kid who drowned at this camp, and he comes back and he like just kills all these teenagers who come back to this campsite. I was like, I've never heard of this story before, so yeah, this movie was literally my introduction to Jason Voorhees, and I've been a fan of this movie since I saw it. But I'm not gonna lie, watching it in like recent years, there was some stuff that doesn't really hold up that well. Namely, it's a product of its time. But there is that scene where Kia, she refers to someone she calls Freddy a sexual slur, and it kind of stings Freddy a bit, which is odd because Freddy is a child murderer, so I don't know, like, why that it would affect him. But just like kind of like one of the oddest, randomest lines that just to put in there. I think it's just for shock value. But it's just like a thing that just doesn't really hold up in my opinion. And I haven't read the book, The Road to Freddy vs. Jason, but I heard that the story, like, the reason this movie was in production hell was because there were so many scripts going around of what this movie should be. At one point, we all know that the end was going to involve Pinhead from Hellraiser. He was going to show up at the very end of the movie. And I didn't see any of the Hellraiser movies by that point either, so yeah, it's just I really do, like I said, it's a very product of its time. I think the soundtrack to this is fantastic. I actually own the soundtrack to it. And I know all about the drama behind the scenes about Ken Kersinger and like Ronnie Yu, and just like how they unceremoniously replaced Kane Hodder. Kane Hodder. How they replaced Kane Hodder, and he was, I think, at one point going to be the one to go up against Robert Englund in this movie, but I guess they made a change to it for some reason. And I understand, like, there are some things that in this movie that piss off a lot of Friday the 13th fans, and that doesn't make any sense. And I watched the movies, and I watched all the movies after this point, and I was just like, yeah, they are right. Like, Jason, get this movie, like, Jason is afraid of water. He's never afraid of water he's never afraid of the water in the other movies. He's always in the water, and he looks just fine, and he's fine. So I don't know why they added that detail. And there was always that thing where they always showed like Jason's eyes. They always show him as like sympathetic. And like, because they said that Kursinger had very kind eyes. But I think it's kind of like how you should never show, like, Michael Myers' eyes, because you wouldn't want Michael Myers to be sympathetic, would you? So why would you want Jason to be sympathetic? I mean, we know he's a kid who drowned, but he's still, like, killing people, so I don't know, like, where that gray line is, but we all know that Freddy Krueger was never supposed to be sympathetic. And he is a child murderer, and he loves what he is doing. So, yeah, there are some very odd reasons about why some of the stuff in this film doesn't work. Although, the actual fight scenes in this movie, when we get to them, because... Oh, I forgot to mention that this movie has a lot of, like, teen drama in it. Like, a lot of it. And look at this. It's called Freddy versus Jason. And Freddy and Jason are the versus part of it, it's only like 20% of the movie. And I would say that 70% of it is like all this other teen drama going on. Like, why would you put that in a movie where we want to see these two horror icons fight? I don't know, like, but when you get to the actual stuff, when you get to the actual battle at the end, it's pretty fucking awesome. Like, you get one in the dream realm, and then you get one in the real world, and both of them have very similar, like, different styles about fighting. But when you get to, but then Jason, he's like, I just imagine, like, I saw this movie as a kid. I didn't know, like, how strong Jason was. But when he does stuff he does the stuff that he does in this movie, I was just like, oh my god, I wish I saw these movies when I was a kid. So, I mean, it's an imperfect movie, but it's a product of its time. Really enjoy it, and I'm gonna give it originally I gave it like a 3 out of 5, but some of the stuff in this, mainly the teen stuff, I would give it like a 2.5 out of 5 stars.
Granny came home, there were 2 cats that were going on the street, so that's gonna be another litter.
Just ignore that. So, so to quickly wrap this up, that's just my Friday the 13th review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you have a great Friday the 13th. And I will see you soon with a new video.